Welcome, everyone, to the Ghost Helper podcast. I'm your host, Tina Erwin, and I have my psychic co host here, Charity Lawrence. And
Hello.
we're going to discuss all things psychic today. But we're actually in a multi part series on psychic ability, what it's like to be psychic, what it's like to have a psychic child. So last week we did part one, how it all started for Charity. So I thought this week we would do part two, which is, are we all psychic? And then I can give people a little bit about how I got started. And then next week, we're going to be looking at all the different kinds of psychic ability. So
That'll be fun.
that's going to be a lot of fun because I think their psychic ability people don't even realize.
Right.
So that'll be super cool. All right, so let's get started. I wanted to point out that everybody's psychic. And I mean, Charity, your husband is a firefighter, correct?
Yes, he is.
And would you say that it's a fair statement that he trusts his gut instinct about the situations that he faces?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I think it's one of those people just think it's natural, but it's actually an ability that we all have. And when you sense your surroundings and feelings within situations, I'm sure that's what he has to tap into on calls.
Okay. And what I saw this working for the submarine force. Police officers have it. They have a feeling about the car ahead of them. It's like there's another part of them that's seeing something or sensing something, and they don't quite know what that is, but it sends off this sensory warning in a person's head. Can be male or female, can be teenager, adults, children. It's I think it's harder for teenagers because they have to override what's in front of them to think about what they're experiencing. And
Mm-hmm.
this takes me to another concept, and that is when you're in a situation and you're having these thoughts, don't dismiss them. Maybe take a deep breath, step back and go, well, wait a minute, what am I feeling? How strong is this? So that you can begin to uh, have have more, I'll say, control over the things that are happening to you. Because a lot
Mm-hmm.
of psychics will say, oh, there's nothing I can do, I can't control it. Well, maybe there is. So let's talk a little bit about the nature of psychic ability, and a lot of what we're discussing today is in the book Psychic Children, Psychic People, because at the end of the day, children are people too. So what we were discussing with your husband or police officers or a parent or a school teacher is situational awareness. And you probably see that with the clients that you work with when in your business.
Mm-hmm.
If someone comes in, you can probably get a lot of information just by how they sit in the chair. Would you say
Oh
that's
yeah.
true?
It starts with, "Hi, how are you?" I just had a client come in not too long ago who's always like pretty chipper, and I could just tell by her sitting outside in the waiting room that something was off. And I asked her, "What's going on? How are you?" She's like, I'm like, "What's happening?" I could just tell she wasn't feeling good. She was having some joint issues due to a medication that she just started taking, and it was immediate. I knew. I just knew.
Okay, well, let's take a second and step back from that. You could see her in the waiting area.
Mm-hmm.
You glanced, and
Mm-hmm.
for a person who isn't as, I'll say, tapped in as you are, because you are tapped in, you are now conscious. You've brought the
Right.
psychic, the maybe sitting in the back room of your mind. You bring it forward.
Oh yeah.
You looked at this person, you're looking at her body language. Your
Mm-hmm.
subconscious is looking at her entire auric field. And you can also look at the chaos that you see in the person's auric field. But you're not fully conscious of that aspect.
Right.
So when you're looking at that, I think what you're seeing is something really. pretty remarkable.
It's the overall energy, just that it's all encompassed, right?
It's completely encompassed, and it's really pretty amazing when you think about it. So by the time she sits down in the chair, you are completely conscious of the fact that this person who you've known is now not the person that you thought, she wasn't. What she's experiencing isn't normal. And we took a brief moment there, so we're going to reiterate that what we're doing is understanding that just in that brief glance of the lady in the waiting room, she could tell a great deal about her. This is true for parents. When your child comes home from school and they walk in, and there's it's like if you could see their auric field, it's red, vibrating, and angry, and you say, "How was your day?" And they just launch at you,
Or they say nothing.
or they just look at you and go in their room, and it's like you couldn't possibly understand. My world is a teenage world, and you couldn't understand. But maybe you could, because we were all teenagers at some point, and we all had
Right.
those bad days, because nobody feels like themselves when they're a teenager, because they don't really know how they feel just yet. So, but then there are other situations that are very scary situations. And in that very scary situation, what we have is a situation that happened on a submarine. And I've told this story before, but we may have an audience that hasn't heard this. There was a lieutenant on a fast attack submarine, and there's two kinds of submarines. There's ballistic missile submarines and fast attack submarines, and we used to have diesel submarines, but they've been pretty much all decommissioned. But the fast attack submarines go out for long periods of time, whereas ballistic missile submarines patrol a square of ocean, and they're on and off on a schedule, in and out on a schedule. On this one day, this submarine thought they were operating in what's called the tongue of the ocean, and it's this big V-shaped trough. And they really believed they were running parallel to the sides of the trough. But somebody made a miscalculation, and they were running perpendicular to the sides.
Hmm.
So they were basically in a course that was a head-on collision to the side of an underwater mountain, which is
Oh man.
going to make somebody's day a very bad day.
Oh gosh.
So this guy's asleep in his rack, and he wakes up 30 minutes before he's supposed to take the duty. He runs to control, and he says to the guy who has the duty, "Dude, I relieve you. I'll take over." The guy says, "Oh, you got another 30 minutes to sleep. Go back to your rack." "No, no, no, no. I relieve you." The guy says, "All right, God, keep your shirt on." Soon as he says, "I have the con, all back full, left full rudder, now," and he's screaming orders to the helmsman.
Hmm.
The helmsman answers the orders and hits it all back full. And so the submarine slows as it's about to hit the mountain,
Oh
and then
my
it hits
goodness.
right full rudder. So as he hits the side of the mountain, it's a glancing blow. Now, this all takes place within like a 4 to 5 minute window.
Wow.
And they did have a collision, but it was a glancing blow. And I actually saw the submarine out of the water. SSN 637 was the hull number. And when that happened, this submarine, it looked like the bow of the ship had somebody had taken a fist and punched it. It was
Mm.
like, but the hull was HY80 steel, and it held.
Wow.
HY meaning high yield steel. And they immediately surfaced the ship, and everybody was angry at this guy because he changed the captain's orders. But if he hadn't, they would have all died that day.
Right.
I mean, a
Wow.
head-on collision at whatever speed they were going, which is classified, would have been catastrophic. As it was, it cost a lot of money to repair it, but it's a whole lot of money to train 125 men, and the years of experience that you can't just go buy off the site.
Well,
You can't
and a
just go
lot of
buy
a
off the
lot of
site.
sad family members.
Oh my God, you can't even imagine the grief.
Oh
And
gosh.
so, of course, he was court-martialed, because he didn't ask, he didn't check with the captain, the XO, or the navigator. He just took action, almost as if he wasn't in control. He was a conduit for something beyond his comprehension that saved the lives of 125 men.
So did he
Well,
just have a feeling then, or was it just there was something there and he just knew?
he I talked to him because he lived in bachelor officer quarters with my husband and I before we were married. And I asked him, I said, "What happened to you?" And he said, "I don't know. I was in a dream and I woke up and I knew that we were going to have a collision and I took action, and when they asked me at my court martial, I couldn't explain it. I just knew it was going to be really, really bad.
You know, the funny thing is I have chills all over right now as you're telling me that.
I couldn't tell you. I just knew. I don't understand why." And they kept saying, "Why did you do this? Why did you do this?" And he said, "I didn't have an answer for them." And you can't say, "Oh, I had a psychic moment," to a court martial
Right.
board. I mean, part of the reason for this show is to let people know in their day-to-day world that things happen to people that don't have a, a, a logical explanation. But we now know, because we're studying quantum physics, string theory, quantum entanglement, that there's more than just the person we see. There is an entire environment outside of us.
Can I tell you a story that lately I've had it twice happen to me where, and this has not happened before, but I go into a used clothing store, consignment store, and I walk in. My daughter and I were just down in San Francisco during the holidays, and we went to Hayden Ashbury, and there's tons of consignment used clothes stores and whatnot. And I walked into one, and I was like, I felt sick. I was like, we gotta go. We gotta go. I can't be in here. And that's the second time it happened to me. And it's just so strange. So, like, it's a weird, sick internal feeling. Like, we gotta go. We gotta get out of here, sis. Let's go.
Well, I can explain that.
Okay.
I have that problem with antique shops.
Mm-hmm.
So let's I mean, that's a great example of psychic ability in action. A person wears clothing. When you buy used clothing or something that another human being owned, well, because we watch all these, crime scene investigation shows, we know that we leave DNA on everything. They can take a little Q-tip and learn all about you from your DNA. Well, if you are developing psychic ability and you are more open to what's there, you may have seen, through your third eye, seen, felt, sensed that something horrendous happened to a person wearing the clothes. Maybe they were murdered. Maybe they were human trafficked. Maybe something horrible happened. We don't know. All we do know is that at that point, when you walked in, you were feeling the energy from those clothes, and they may have come from several people who had horrendous things happen. And understanding what happens to people who are human trafficked, it's so horrific. I can't repeat it on a video. It's I can't even repeat it. It's so
Can't
bad.
imagine.
The same thing happens when you go into an antique store. That happens for me too. And my skin starts to crawl because you don't know if the furniture or the linens or the glasses or the dishware in that antique shop were things that somebody else owned, and something horrible happened to them. Maybe their house was swept away in a flood, and this is the little bit that's left over. Or maybe someone was doing satanic rituals in that house. So that energy is imbued in the metal and the wood and the ceramic. Wood doesn't hold it as much as as metal does. But any metal tool, you're going to get the energy of the person who originally owned it.
Yeah.
So, yes, that feeling that you had is very real. And I think you're very wise to leave the store.
And the funny thing is, we had been in quite a few other ones. It was just this particular one. It probably looked the nicest and the cleanest. Didn't matter. Something in there. Some collective, I don't know.
Exactly. Also, you might have also been feeling the building itself.
Well,
It
true.
wouldn't necessarily have to just be the clothing, it could be the property that the building sits on. You may have walked into a space where, in a different stack of time, something tragic or catastrophic happened. Maybe that building collapsed during a San Francisco quake
Yeah.
and was rebuilt. Or maybe there's a fault line underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, a psychic will sense that there's a fault line, and it's like it opens up something within them, and they wouldn't necessarily see it. And of course, we know that San Francisco has a bunch of fault lines underneath it,
Mm-hmm.
and lately a lot of them are active.
Mm.
So I mean, because it's important to be able to categorize all the potentialities of what you felt in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not crazy. Yes, you can feel it. And I mean, when we were looking for houses in Charleston in the early 70s, well, I guess it was the mid 70s, what we saw was I could walk in and go, my God, this place is haunted. And it's like, we have to get out of here. Can't live here. But we just stopped to look. It's like, no, can't live here. It's
Yeah,
really bad
right?
here.
Turn around.
Turn around, take, step away from this house. You're not going to be happy there.
Mm-hmm.
So, just a very interesting situation.
Well, the other part of that too is, well, this whole like Goodwill secondhand used stores is quite popular with the teenage girl crowd, so we frequent them. And often my daughter will say, like, Mom, that mirror over there, bad. Or like that figurine, mm-mm. She can identify objects very clearly and just say no.
Well, the fact that she's doing that, the fact that you're acknowledging and encouraging her to pay attention to it, let me take that discussion of that mirror.
Uh-huh.
Mirrors are doorways, and more is coming out about mirrors. And a mirror is a doorway between dimensions. Now you can shift the energy of a mirror using several tools, but the fact that she could sense that
Oh,
means
yeah.
that there's a part of her third eye, which is actually seeing something. So she can tell you, uh, and you're not going to think she's crazy.
No.
She can tell you, and you can acknowledge it, and then praise her for listening to her inner guidance.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Because I feel like that inner guidance is absolutely critical right now.
Yes.
So, this brings up another point. When you're starting out as an adult, a child, a teenager, male, female, doesn't matter, you start to sense things. One of the greatest benefits you can have is a friend or family member or parent who believes you. And I have to say that it's amazing that I shouldn't say it's amazing that you believe her, because you've certainly been down the rabbit hole, and I mean, you built a living room in that rabbit hole,
Yes.
So that's really something. So I thought I'd take a second and talk about how it started for me. And a lot of people say, oh, these are gifts that are given to you by, the creator gave you this gift. And I would offer that, you know, I don't call this a gift because you earn it. And if you have had psychic ability in past lives, and an astonishing number of us have, that we worked on and developed, then what happens is, at each successive life, you are developing that ability at more and more significant levels.
Mm-hmm.
Once you are doing that, then as you have that, as you have this ability, start to work for you, then, and if you're using it for your greater good and the greater good of others, then you have developed a linkage and then a working partnership with the higher realms or the heaven world. And now you have a connection to your higher self, that connection to the divine. I don't call it spirit because spirit can be alcohol or a ghost or a demonic being. You don't know who spirit is. So we're,
Mm-hmm.
as we've discussed before, we're really careful about what we call this. So when I was a little kid, I didn't know I had psychic ability. I had very weird dreams sometimes that I can remember to this day, and I was 5 or 6. I can still remember them in agonizing detail, and some of them were terrifying. And I think that sometimes if a child tells you they have a very bad dream and you listen, you don't know if that child is seeing it or not seeing it. So don't dismiss it. If you even think your child is psychic, start recording it. Like you could start recording these events with your daughter, what she's doing. Keep sort of like a logbook for your children, and look at the events that are happening to them and the abilities that are starting to emerge.
Well, it's funny you're talking about dreams because in this morning on the way to school, she was telling me she's almost 16, by the way. Mom, I have this recurring dream and I had it again this morning or last night. And she's like, I've had it many times. And she's like, this time I knew that I was in control. And it's a dream where there's like it was a scary dream. And she's like, I knew I was in control this time. And I said, nope, you can't scare me. Something to that effect. But she's very vivid with the dream world is very vivid for her. She's had past life dreams that they're just so distinctive and so like there's so much emotion behind it. So we write them down often.
All right. One of the things that you can find happens is, and this is not a dream podcast, but this came up, so this has to be addressed. If you have a recurring dream, your subconscious and your higher self are trying to tell you something.
Mm,
So when you write it down, when she writes it down, or you write it down for her, or she's explaining it, one of the things that you can help her with as her parent is ask her questions.
oh yeah.
It's like you have knowledge stuck in RAM, but you have to have somebody that knows how to write the code to get it out.
Right, I'm good at asking questions. A
And when you
lot.
ask those questions, you're able to then determine, is this something that she's going to become more aware of, or is this a premonition? Because they're different. They are very different. A
Mm-hmm.
premonition, you get little bits more night after night after night. Sometimes they're terrifying and you can do nothing about it. And sometimes you can stop a future event.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's great that you're writing that down.
Absolutely.
When I was 8, maybe 9, I had a Siamese cat who was
Mm-hmm.
my best friend, and she was hit by a car. I found her body,
No.
but it was her ghost that I could see forever. I mean, I just like she was always there. And she'd look at me like, "Why aren't you picking me up? Why aren't
I'm so lonely.
I'm so lonely? I miss you."
Uh-huh.
And my mother didn't know what to do with that. And I said, "Don't you see her? She's standing right there." And it's the 50s. What's my mother going to do? She's like,
Right.
"Ooh, okay, no, I'm sure you miss your kitty, sweetie." And she didn't ridicule me. My mother was not unkind. She
Uh-huh.
simply didn't know what to do with that. So it's not
Right.
a, but what happens is when you're dealing with psychic ability, it, it happens that you start awakening to it a little bit here and a little bit there. Or it could just sort of, someone goes click and it just all comes and you can do these things, and you're tidal waved with it, because I've seen this happen with children or teenagers or adults. And sometimes it's brought on by a serious shock, or you visit someplace and you come home with a traveler with you, and now you got to figure out what to do. And I think
Hmm.
that this is a very important concept to understand. And that's why, doing this podcast is a very important thing, because it lets people know that you're not the only ones who are seeing, feeling, and experiencing these things.
Tina, would you say, because this is like a lot of it comes down from family members, correct? It's or
It
everybody
can.
has it, but do you get what I'm asking? Like, so we all have it, but maybe it's stronger in some families that have experienced this many times before.
I think I hear this a lot. Oh, well, it was my grandmother. Then I hear, oh, it skips a generation. And I would suggest that it from my opinion, and it's just an opinion,
Hmm.
people are certainly free to disagree with the opinion. I think when you have psychic ability, yes, your grandmother or your aunt could also have had it, but it can also be because there's karma attached.
Hmm.
So, karmically, in this lifetime, you have this much ability,
Gotcha.
and it may not. It's capped, and you're never going to do anything else with it.
Hmm.
But karmically, if you do pursue it and you're following as much as you can about spiritual law, then that little bit can go to this much and then this much. And now you're learning how to use it, but you're taking responsibility for it. And you may have watched, a relative who is doing readings and playing with cards, and where they brought out a Ouija board, and it was so terrifying for you that you said, no,
Shut it
I'm never
down.
going to deal with that. I'm going to shut it down.
Hmm.
We hear that too. There's a lot of theme and variation that goes with that. I'm sure you've heard people talk about that
Oh
too,
my
right?
gosh, all the time. Like a lot. I have one client that her granddaughter has imaginary friends, right? And I said, Amy, you know they're not imaginary. But she so doesn't want to go there. It's scary to her. She's frightened by it. So they just say imaginary friend. And I'm like, it's not her imaginary friend.
I had an imaginary friend. Her name was Sarah. I remember her.
Uh-huh.
I was 4 years old. I still remember her. And we lived in this house in a very rural place in North Carolina. And the house was old, like it was built in the 1800s old. And it
Hmm.
had creaky wooden floors. I can't stand wooden floors to this day because they
Trauma.
creak. It's awful. And she was ragged. Oh my
Oh.
gosh, her hair was dirty and she didn't ever
Hmm.
change her clothes. An imaginary friend, they're gonna change their clothes. But if it's a ghost and they don't ever change their clothes because that's what they died in, then you're dealing with a ghost and not your child's imagination.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's a little tool as simple as that can help you understand. I had another woman tell me that she kept having this recurring dream, and she was so deeply disturbed by this dream that she actually, through her boyfriend, came to talk to me. And they couldn't make heads or tails of the dream. It just happened night after night after night
Hmm.
after night. And so finally I said, well, go through the scenario again. And she's going on and on. And I said, what were these people wearing? And she said, why does that matter? Well, we're women. We know fashion changes
Uh-huh.
through the millennia. We're not running around in togas, and I'm not wearing, homespun. Well, this girl is wearing a homemade nightgown with ties because they didn't have the money for buttons. There were no zippers. There were no fashioned buttonholes. So she's describing the clothing. I said, this didn't take place this lifetime. And by gently tugging on what her memories were, we were able to determine that this was just before the moment she and her mother were murdered.
Oh, dang.
And she kept her subconscious was never able to get past the trauma of what happened to them. And it kept being shown to her. And I said, yes, that's how you died, but you are in this life now. There is no need to be terrified. You're all right. After that discussion and we took it apart, we understood it, we gave it some level of healing. She never had the dream again.
Wow.
So by gently acknowledging something and maybe playing a little bit of psychic detective, you can help somebody to not feel so crazy about what's going on with them.
Right.
So, um, when I was in high school, uh, I traveled to South America, and some, I had several cases where I almost died. Spent a lot of time sort of
Oh my
avoiding
goodness.
avoiding death this lifetime.
Wow.
It happened several times, and um, in the I lived in Colombia in Medellin, which it was in in 1970 it was not the drug capital of the world. 1971, it was just a really beautiful sort of wild country,
Mm-hmm.
Colombia. Because I remember one time I went to Bogota for the weekend. It's 3 days by train. There were no roads, and the flight between Medellin and Bogota was about 35 minutes. So if that plane went down, no one would ever find you.
Mm.
But we went on a trip and we were up on the side of a mountain. And as we were coming down the mountain, everybody in the car is drunk except the guy I was dating, who was my boyfriend while I was down there. God, he was good looking. Oh my goodness. Good Lord. Don't remember that guy. Anyway, and they were veering the mountains. You're in the Andes Mountains. There's no guardrails. There's flash floods. The roads washed out. It's a lot terrifying. I can still remember this. And every time we round a curve, it was wider. And I'm thinking, I can see the bottom. Medellin sits in the bottom of a teacup with the mountains all the way around. It's
Mm-hmm.
terrifying to fly in there. And I knew the car was going to crash. And I kept hearing this voice say, "Stop the car, stop the car. You're not supposed to die tonight." Meaning, if you don't do something, all of you are going to die. So I was pretty fluent in Spanish, so I had them stop the car. We got out, and there was a flat tire. No one knew we had a flat tire. They changed the tire. My boyfriend drove us back. So for me, that was such a momentous event because it told me I'm now communicating with some other being that's looking out for me. How do I explain that?
Mm-hmm.
And there was no explanation, but everyone thought I was a hero after that because I got them to stop the car. So that was a kind of an amazing thing.
It's interesting when you have that very loud, clear thought, voice come into your head and tell you something.
Well, I think it's more than it. Sometimes it's so unnerving when it happens to you that sometimes the best you can do is try to respond and then sort it out later. I'm always grateful. I will always be grateful to that voice.
Mm-hmm.
And the other times that a voice like that can help you, and this may be something to share with your daughter, and maybe your kids could listen to our podcast and be really proud of their mom.
Oh, I have them listen and critique me.
They do.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
Uh,
Is that when they're in a group of people, your higher self wants you to live. The job of your subconscious is to keep you alive. I was on a trip to Central America. I was in Salvador, and Salvador went to war with Honduras, and they were dropping bombs, and it was very dramatic. And and we finally escaped to Guatemala, and that trip was harrowing. We get there, and they bombed Guatemala by mistake. I guess from the air of the jungle, all looks the same. Anyway, so I'm with these 17 people with the Institute of Middle America, and the car we were in was pretty total because we were in a terrible accident on our way to Guatemala. And finally, they said, we're going to have to stay here another couple months and help get the car repaired. And I said, the car's insured. Why don't we leave? And they said, oh, no, no, no. We're going to get the car fixed. We don't know how long it'll be. I'm thinking it's Central America in a country that's at war. Really? How are you going to get this fixed?
Mm.
and we have to go back to school. I don't know how long this is going to take. So I said, I'm sorry, I can't stay. I'm, we've been through a war, an earthquake, a volcano, and an accident that totaled the car. I think it's time we went home. And I was the only person that said that. I was called a traitor. I was called every horrible name in the book because I didn't want to stay in a in a country where they're bombing it. Martial law is declared, which means you have no civil rights, especially if you're
Mm.
all these. There were like 10 of us were women. You don't have 10 young college girls in a country with martial law. Oh my gosh, that's dangerous.
Mm. Oh my goodness. Yes.
And so, and I was persona non grata. I said, I'm sorry. This voice in my head keeps saying, stay the course. You're on the right track. So I get on a plane 2 days later. 9 of those women followed me. They said, we all thought about it and we realized you were right. We can't stay down there. They told us we were all traitors too. We don't care. We have to go home. It's like, okay. Sometimes leadership is lonely. And sometimes maybe they weren't hearing their higher self, but I could. So
Mm-hmm.
that helped them to be stronger. They all went back to school and they were fine. The people who stayed in the other country did eventually come back. They did get the car fixed, but I didn't have any desire to stay any longer. Sometimes enough is enough.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's important for people to understand how to point that out. It's like the mom who thinks, she's I mean, a lot of people have light fixtures. So this woman had this big light fixture, and this voice told her, move your child right now. Child's directly under the light fixture. And when it collapses from the ceiling, she had just saved her child. She
Wow.
couldn't know that the light fixture is going to collapse.
You know what this makes me think of, since you're talking about it, is about 2 years ago, I moved salons, and I had been looking and looking and going into places. And the place I'm at now, when I walked in, everything lined up. Everything felt right. And it was like the first time I had the sense of like, this is it. Everything is right. This is where you need to be. And it was such a cool feeling to know that, yep, here it is. This is exactly where you need to be. And it's been amazing.
Okay, this is part of awakening to psychic ability, is that very type of experience. A lot of us call it synchronicity. All of a sudden, you're in the right place, you're doing the right thing. And when you're trying something and it doesn't work and it doesn't work and it doesn't work, when you start analyzing the thoughts in your head, I heard something recently that said that a person that is developing on their spiritual path, they're developing their intuition, their psychic sense, whatever word you want to use, is able to analyze their own thoughts. If you think about that, they're listening to themselves, which means they're also listening to other people on much more significant levels. And they're processing it differently. And then you step back. All right, finally, okay, I'm trying this and this and this, and those things aren't working because I can feel they aren't the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you walked into this one shop and everything felt right.
Right. And then one of the girls I work with now, there was this immediate strong connection. Immediate. And we both, talk woo woo. So, it's pretty funny. But now we've created this, we call it our soul tribe. So we have this group of clients and friends that we meet once every 6 weeks and get together and do a few things. But it just everything fell into place, and now this person is a huge part of my life, and it's been incredible.
Okay, that's the other aspect of synchronicity, meeting a person you were meant to meet
Oh yeah, for sure.
and getting that help and getting that soul connection. Because
Mm-hmm.
we know people, we've known each other before. And when we know each other and we work together and we are building and healing and expanding on knowledge, it makes an enormous, enormous difference. I mean, in the group that you have, your soul tribe, do you ever just come up with questions that, maybe you and I can address? Because that's a really cool thing.
Haven't yet, but we should. I mean, we talk about, everything under the sun, but it would be fun to get some questions together for you.
Or we could just do a Zoom call,
Oh
like
yeah.
this,
Yeah.
where it's not necessarily recorded, but that we could really talk about these things and have go back and forth, because I think that the interaction, because you never know who they're going to talk to, and maybe a lot of different people could be helped.
Mm-hmm.
You're creating a reality of what a new norm is, and a new norm is a very good thing.
Mm-hmm.
As we're looking more and more at quantum entanglement, and what that means is the connections that we have to people. You were looking for that, almost like the key in the lock. Here's the connection. I got the key in the lock, but it won't turn. And if it turns hard, it's not really the right connection.
Right.
But when you go click click, now you know it's a real fit. That can happen in a relationship. I mean, you it can happen in a relationship, whether it's a friend, a business acquaintance, or somebody you want to marry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important. And then maybe you got married and it didn't work out. My daughter just got engaged, and both she and her fiance had been married before, and they the karma between they and their previous spouses was over, and they're divorced. Everybody's moving on with their life. Then these two people found each other, and now they're very, very happy together. And for families, when you have a friend or a family member where that relationship ended and something new started, and you embrace the new person because it's not up to you to judge or whatever, you open up a new doorway, and you give that person the freedom to be truly themselves with you,
Mm-hmm.
because you understand that something had to end for this new experience to begin. And one of the
Def
theories is that most people haven't lived this long before. And that's why we see, one experience or relationship end and a new one begin, just because you have a lot to accomplish in each lifetime.
yeah, definitely experienced that one too recently. Just when I met my husband, there was this connection that we both he was taken back by it. She just kept saying like, I don't understand what's happening. I don't understand. But it was such a strong, strong connection that we could not be apart.
And then you blended families, right?
Yes, he's got two and I have two, and it's been fun and it's challenging and all the above.
And when you're approaching it with love and insight, and I think one of the biggest things you bring to the table really is your openness and your insight in listening to young people.
Well,
And
thank you.
I've been through teenage years, with my three kids, and I thought teenage years are challenging. They're also a lot of fun. You're watching these people grow from little kids and preteen to teenagers, and you get to watch them blossom.
Mm-hmm.
You get to see the person they're going to become. And then, so I'm in a different phase. My son is 46. That's just, sorry, it's kind of mind boggling. But I look at these are three really fine human beings. I mean, that is the greatest gift a parent could have, are three amazing human beings
Oh yeah.
who are with amazing people, and they're living their best life, and they don't need me anymore. That's the accomplishment. But when we're
Right.
together, we have a blast. So the insight, people think psychic ability is this weird and strange thing. But what if it's the insight of just human relationships?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that the more insightful you are as you're tuning in, your ability to solve problems becomes a little more sophisticated?
Well, absolutely. And my saying is always, what does your gut say? What is your intuition? What is it telling you? Follow that. Don't overthink it. What's the first thing that comes to mind? Like take all of their thoughts out and like when it comes down to it, sit in a quiet moment and what ask the question and there's your answer.
And how do they respond when you say that?
To my children, they usually just listen. They listen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, but they're not dismissing you.
No, 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 no. No.
They are listening.
They're
That
listening.
is that that's really fantastic. I am really, really happy for you because you must be doing something very right for you to have them listen. Doesn't
we
mean you
have
don't have tough
wait
days.
wait I honestly I'm so blessed, fortunate that they're amazing. They're amazing. They're amazing kids. All of them.
That is fantastic. Because when you blend a family, now you have a whole new karmic journey because you're impacting each other.
Mm-hmm.
And as you awaken to that concept, it makes you more thoughtful when you're saying something to someone. It's really special.
Yeah, and that I just the energies we have different energies going on in different phases of life, and the super joyful ones balance out maybe somebody having a bad day, right?
But they get to talk about their bad day.
If they want, yes, absolutely.
And when you're following this intuitive path, when you're building all of these connections and embracing the situations that happen, there's so many lessons to learn in the process. And maybe somebody had a weird psychic thing happen. And sitting down and discussing it logically and rationally helps them because
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the problems that a lot of kids have is that one, it sounds to me like you are emotionally present.
Mm-hmm.
And a spiritual, somebody says, oh, so and so spiritual. To me, the most spiritual people are those people, especially parents, who are emotionally present and who listen and respond in a thoughtful way, not a knee jerk no, which I was always trying to train my husband. And I remember when my son asked me one time, he said, he was in, he was away at school and he said, my girlfriend wants to come live with me. How do you feel? And I said, well, let's talk about it. Let's figure
Mm-hmm.
out what is your plan? What's her plan? Is what does her family say? And he said, and so we went through all of the answers. We worked through it, and I said, I think it's a really good idea because I knew that she was going to be my daughter-in-law, so I could wasn't just that I could see the future. It's that I knew
Mm-hmm.
she was going to be with us for a long time, and she is the loveliest person. And when they're together, I mean, she is his. They are each other's focus. So he's not a single guy alone in Phoenix by himself. They do all these things together on the weekends, and they were great, and their families are happy for them. And then they got married, and it's been a really good. It's still a really great relationship they have. Really good
That's
marriage.
awesome.
So by parents embracing when a child asks a question, because that's an example of being emotionally present. It's also called the Socratic method. And what that method is instead of just saying yes or no, you work with the person to find out, well, what's your plan about this? What do you think about this? What if this happens? How did you plan to handle that? And if they say, well, I need to think about that, well, let's work through how you could handle it. And instead of saying, and my husband was so used to being told as a child no, that was his go-to answer. And I said, well, let's work through this. And everything worked out really, really well because we facilitated a happy solution instead of being judgmental or saying no. I mean, it's a turn of the century. People live together. Wake up and smell the coffee.
Right.
So,
Right. I always tell them, hey, you can tell me anything. I've seen a lot. Nothing surprises me. I've heard a lot, and growing up in the home that I grew up in, where it was all these things are bad, don't do these things. Okay, now I can't talk to my parents because what if I do that? And if I do those things, then what, like, prepare me. But it was just like, don't. Anyway, I tell them, you can tell me anything. Nothing will surprise me. Just be open. There's no judgment. And if you do something and you mess up, well, there's a lesson in that. And that's what we need to focus on is the lesson and how we come out of it.
That's perfect. I mean, I don't think you could ask for more than that. And then that teaches children problem solving methods. That absolutely teaches them how to solve a problem and how to approach a problem. So even that is a teachable moment, which to me is every moment of living a learning experience, a teachable moment for children, for each other. I mean, at this point in my life, my husband and I do this weird thing where we're find something in the during the day to say, "Oh, I'm so grateful for you because you always do this." Oh, it
Mm-hmm.
feels so good when you always help me with this, or you're Johnny on the spot with that. And the atmosphere in the house is so warm and loving because I mean, at my age, I still have a wonderful husband. I'm grateful
That's
for him.
awesome.
I'm grateful that I have a man to cook for. And, we're still part of our kids' lives. So all of these things, that karma comes back to you. So what you're doing at this stage of the game with your children and your husband, wink, wink, when you're, in your 70s and your 80s, I'm not there quite there yet, but in your 70s and your 80s, you have this blessing. This is the benefit of the spiritual path. Maybe you have psychic ability, maybe you don't. Maybe you're using it, but if you're using it to show gratitude, because that part of that psychic sense is the awareness that you're connected to something much, much greater than yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a child that's telling you about experiences and you're listening, oh my gosh, you're now in a very, very different place.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, for sure.
So I think we've covered a lot today.
Yes, we did.
So, do you have anything else you want to add or bring up?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, my plan is in part 3, we're going to talk about how do you know if your child is psychic. And then eventually we'll go into all the different kinds of psychic ability. And there are an amazing number of them
Mm-hmm.
that you wouldn't even think of. So that will be really cool. So, Charity, thank you so much for joining me on this journey
Thank you,
today.
Tina. Thank
And
you.
if you guys have questions or comments, or you want to have us answer a question on our show, contact at ghosthelpers.com. We'll get us there. We'll get you there and we'll look at that and we'll be, grateful, and share this video with your friends who think they might be psychic or they might have a psychic child or a friend. And you might be surprised at how helpful you can be to other people.
Oh,
So,
yes.
and when you're that helpful, you'd be surprised how happy your life is. It's
Mm-hmm.
great.
Yes.
Well, thank you, everyone. We are
Thank
so
you.
grateful that you're here and you joined us, and we'll talk again soon. Bye
Goodbye.
bye.